Food and Wine Insider is a weekly look at a $1.5 trillion industry touching every American. Visit us at foodandwineinsider.com.
You know, Ann, last Sunday I was at a party for bourbon, and a guest spilled food and liquor on the floor, and three or four servers. It was at a major bar in Manhattan, and three or four servers stepped over it. People were stepping over it, and they were simply not cleaning it up, which surprised me. And then finally, the event organizer for Brown and Foreman actually got down on his hands and knees and cleaned it up. It reminded me about how sometimes people don't do things because it's not my job. That's my way of introducing Laura MacLeod, who brings a wealth of experience and, by the way, started in the food industry, to our show today. As she points out, when workers say, "not my job," what follows is a mess. Welcome to the program, Laura.
Thanks so much, Don. Great to be with you and Ann. Terrific. Thanks so much.
As you know, Ann Dow is a veteran food industry executive and past president of the Specialty Food Association. And with that introduction, I'm going to turn everything over to Ann and Laura.
Okay, sounds great.
Thanks, Don. Laura, thanks so much for being on the program.
Oh, sure.
That was a great story, by the way, Don. As I understand it, you've taken your education in social work and your extensive experience as a union worker to create an effective technique for improving staff communication. I wonder if you could just start by giving us a bit more background about you and the inspiration behind the Inside Out project.
Sure. So as you so beautifully said, I used my I worked extensively as a union worker. I also worked in freestanding restaurants when I first came to New York. I came to New York after college to pursue a career in acting and show business. And I did that for quite some time, but as I'm sure you know, even the most successful of actors go back and forth between, what we call survival jobs and acting jobs. So I did a lot of waitressing and bartending, and then I eventually took a job in a hotel, which gave me some benefits and some security. And then I went back to school to get my master's in social work. And that's where I came up with the idea of group work, so small groups of people collaborating and sorting out their issues with each other and connecting that to the workplace and what I had seen for so many years in the hotel and other places, frankly, in other industries where I worked, which is that the problem often with people not doing well, or we weren't productive, or things weren't, really on track, not because of anything to do with how you do your job, or we didn't know how to do our job, or anything like that in terms of training, but because we weren't getting along. Somebody had a grudge. This one didn't like that one, or I felt, you forgot my birthday, and so I'm not going to help you with this and that and the other thing. So to me, these were personal issues. These were social work type issues because they had to do with communication and boundaries and just getting along with people. So that's where my inspiration came from. And now I work with a variety of groups, and I'm focusing now a little bit more on management because I've seen also that management is the key to the connections with the staff and helping there too. And again, management needs to know how to use themselves, use their personality, and make an appropriate connection that can help the whole team be more productive.
Awesome. You've written about conflict resolution, and a lot of what you just said is about conflict resolution.
Yes.
Can you provide a really good example of a difficult conflict you may have experienced and how best it was resolved, or at least share some techniques to try and address it?
Sure. Well, all kinds of conflicts from large to small in the workplace that I can think of. I worked with a team at one point where literally this was a 5-star restaurant, and they could not determine whose job it was to cut the lemons. So you're there at lunch, and you've paid $500, $600 for lunch with your very important client, and it's going to take 20, 30 minutes to get a cup of tea with lemon because nobody cut the lemons. And this is, it may seem crazy, silly, like who's in charge there? But the fact is these things happen. They get, something small gets out of control, and before you know it, it's a big deal. I'm thinking, though, of something where I had a direct, where I worked directly with it and we resolved it. So housemen, there were a group of housemen in a hotel, and they didn't like the fact that the managers were coming to them during their lunch hour and giving them tasks, saying, here, I need you to do this when you're finished with lunch, and handing them papers and things like that. And the managers were saying, well, hey, we got stuff to do, and we're in a rush, and all we want to do is give you the sheet, and what's the big problem? So this was a huge conflict in terms of it festered and festered until one day, they were screaming in the cafeteria, and it's a big deal. And the way we worked it out, and I think this is the framework for in my mind, for any conflict resolution, is to start by everybody getting on the same page. So what are the exact facts here? What happened in the cafeteria exactly? Who said what to whom, and who did what at what point? So we all know what's going on. I think a lot of conflict happens because there's miscommunication, misunderstanding. I thought you said this and you didn't really. So that's the first step. Then in this case, clear that there's more behind it. That's the other thing. Obviously, if I got a perfectly fine relationship with my boss and he or she hands me something during a lunch hour, that's not a problem. I take it, and whenever lunch is over, I do it. This was a problem because there was animosity on both sides. The houseman had felt, and I had to dig to get that, like, hey, folks, this feels like there's something else going on here. Let's get to it. And that's the other technique in conflict resolution, to make a statement about what you see, not a judgment. Just, hey, what I'm getting here is that there's animosity here. Let's get to this. And when I did that, yeah, well, they think we're lazy and they don't like us, and and then on the management side, well, they make a lot more money than we do. They talk to us poorly. They don't follow our direction. So, okay, now I see. Now we can sort this out. And then we sort it out. And at the end of the goal here is to get, again, in a timely fashion, because you're running a business here. That's the other thing. You can't spend all day with this. But to get to something that everybody can live with. So in this case, what it looks like is, hey, managers, do your best not to bother them during their lunch hour. That is their time. They're off the clock. They want to hang out. If it's an emergency, if it's something that really needs to be done right when they're finished lunch and you got to do it, fine. Explain it quickly and do it expeditiously. And housemen, when you're finished with lunch, please check in right away to see what needs to be done so you can get back to work. This way, you can live with that. It seems to make sense. And everybody's also had a chance to say whatever it was that was behind all this huge mess. That helps a lot, too. Sometimes people just saying, hey, they think we're lazy and we don't like that. Or, hey, they don't talk to us pleasantly. That's enough to get them back on track. They wanted to be heard.
You talk about complaining as another behavioral area you've studied.
Yeah.
Or maybe I should really reference it as venting. Venting can sometimes be a good thing because you get the issue out and then you feel better and you can move on.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to determine how best to vent, you write about the purpose of venting.
Yes.
Can you talk about that and the kind of the conditions necessary to make it a positive experience?
Okay. Okay, great. I love the question. I call it venting with a purpose. So, as I say, and I think we all know this, we all complain, and that's natural. It's human. There's nothing wrong with that. There's something that feels good about complaining, right? So that's the start. But in a group or when you're doing it on the job, in a workplace, it has to be determined, where are we going with this? So, for example, I facilitate several staff support groups, which are all about preventing burnout and helping staff members in a variety of industries just get their stuff out and work through whatever they might be going through. So a lot of what comes out is, there's this, I don't like my supervisor, this happened, and the company mission doesn't make any sense to me anymore, and all these kinds of things. So what I say is, look, listen, if getting it out, just getting it out, maybe that's enough. But we've got to determine if that's the case. So maybe just saying it and knowing that these larger issues really can't be changed. I mean, these are higher up issues. But just getting them out is enough. Okay, great. Then we move on, and we accept the fact that these bigger issues, things that are determined across the board in the organization, you're not going to overturn them. So best to figure out our work then would be about figuring out how to accept that and work within it. Or we just say it and then we move on. That's it. The smaller issues, okay, maybe it's something with a coworker, something with the supervisor, something with a policy that's been instituted by your supervisor. So maybe that could be changed if you really felt strongly that it didn't work. So then how are we going to do that? What might we do or work on to change that? And this is crucial because another thing that I found in my own personal experience in the workplace is you have those people that just complain all the time, right? The ones who are just chronic complainers. And they bring down the whole team. And it's very difficult to work around those people because they kind of have nothing to say but complaints. And while you may feel the same way about a variety of things they're saying, you can't be around it hour after hour after hour. And so where are we going with this is a really important question.
It's interesting. I wonder if you've thought at all about how do you move someone from a glass half empty point of view to a glass half full point of view. And if you have any thoughts on that, that would be really great.
Yes, it's a great question. I think I'll tell you what it's not. And this is interesting because I did a workshop this past week and someone said this and I thought, no, not really. What you cannot do is say, you know what, hey, we're all a team here and we got to work together and this is, remember the company mission and, the company values and all that. Nobody wants to hear that when they're at a half empty spot. I don't know about you, but if I'm in a spot where I'm feeling down, whether it's in the workplace or not, whatever it is, I don't want to hear a pep talk. That's too fast, too quick a solution. And what I'm getting is you haven't really heard what I said. You didn't really get what's behind, what I'm feeling about this, that I'm disturbed, I'm upset, I'm frustrated, whatever it is I am. So I think the key here is to begin, again, we're back to get on the same page. What exactly happened? What precisely is the source of your upset in the workplace? And at that point, if we can understand it, where it came from and what's going on, this is the beauty of the group. There might be others who've had a similar experience. Oh, that happened to me. I had a supervisor who did X, Y, and Z like that too, and this is what I did, or this is how I managed it, or this could be done, or you know what? Nothing to be done. So, then you got to really rethink. Maybe it's just today I'm upset about it and tomorrow I'll be fine. Sometimes that's the case. Maybe it's, hey, I'm upset about this today, and I'll speak to the supervisor, see where I go from there. And if, at some point, again, if with half empty and really disturbed, maybe this isn't the spot for you. Maybe it's not the right fit. Not that you jump to that, but, you have to think about these things. People are not, bottom line here is people are not going to get on board just because, we're a team and we're supposed to work together and this is the company mission.
It's interesting to me because I think there's so much evolution going on in the whole area of human resources. And what does that mean? It's not really, human resources, because that sounds like it's just sort of like financial resources, human resources. No, it's really about the organization. It's about the culture. It's about, how the people feel in that culture. Because let's face it, when people are working, they're spending a lot more time with a lot of other people than probably they are with their families. And so if the culture isn't a fit, it can create just an uncomfortableness, I suppose. Have you done anything regards this area of, sort of how important the organizational culture is and how it gets fostered and how people feel within it?
Yes, I agree with you 150%. It's the culture. Human resources, as you say, is human resources. I mean, at the end of the day, and this is not a judgment, this is a fact, human resources professionals, their main focus is legal, company policies, hiring, termination, those types of things. They don't really have the time or, frankly, the skill set to be working on culture and integrating with people in a one-on-one personal way. That's not their job. That's not their focus. So it's all about the culture. And here my main, I don't know what you'd call it, I guess, my take on cultures in organizations is that often the company mission, the company statement, the what we're doing is very, very vague. It's broad. Who can argue with it? If I'm saying the company mission is all of us together, we're stronger together, well, okay, I don't know that anybody argues with that. Isn't that what all companies could and should be about? But how does that play out in the workplace? What does it really mean? What does it mean if you say you have an open door policy? I don't know what specifically that means. Does that mean the CEO is open to talking to the janitor? And about what? Why? I'm going to stroll in and say what? What I encounter a lot is people saying, hey, I came to work here because this is what they said it was going to be about, and I'm seeing now it's not about that at all. So it's in print that we're going to listen to feedback and hear from workers and value employees. That's great. But you're not doing it. Are you doing it? Show me where and how. And I came with X suggestion, and it got brushed off. I never heard back from you. Oh, yeah, that sounds great, Laura. And then I don't hear anything. You don't have to take the suggestion. I understand there are many, many levels and what have you, but brush me off? That doesn't sound like you're valuing employees, and that's what you said you wanted to do.
So a good deal of listening and follow-up.
Yes.
You've written about, and I think a lot of this is about group dynamics, and that we're all in groups of one shape or form or another, whether it's family or friends or coworkers. I thought what you had written about regards an exercise class had particular application in many groups, because there are sort of rules or everybody sort of behaving, I guess, in a particular way.
Yes.
For the gym, you talked about, follow the rules of the gym. Don't bring your cell phone in, stay in the class, look to those in the know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on behaviors that you think make the group more productive. Is it these things? Is it other things? Is it specific to a condition or a situation?
That's a great question, and I really like it. What you're talking about and what I talked about with the exercise class is The norms. So not the rules. Rules to me are, strict things. Like there's no smoking in the building. We don't, the building closes at 12 or whatever. Those are rules. The norms are about how we're going to function as a group. And are we going to have a break during the session? Our meeting is 2 hours long. Are people going to be able to eat during the meeting? Can they bring in water, food, whatever? Even phones. Phones are really important. What's your cell phone policy? Is it okay for me to take out my phone and text somebody in the middle of you talking about whatever? These things often in groups of all types are not stated. They're not verbalized. And I think a lot of times we take it for granted. An exercise instructor takes it for granted that people will come in and go in the back if they don't know what's going on. But the fact is they don't do it. They don't, they stroll in whenever, and they go in the front, and they're moving equipment and disrupting and what have you. And this kind of thing happens in all places, workplace, with friends, with family. And the deal here is that the leader, who's ever in charge in whatever way, it might be an unofficial in charge in a group like family or friends, there might not be, there's kind of often an unofficial leader. But whatever the case is, the point is it's up to the leader to make sure that, again, everybody's on the same page with the norms. Having a meeting, it's going to start promptly at 10. If you're late, you're late. I get that. Come on in, but be quiet and try to sit in the back. Catch up at the break. We don't want to have cell phones because we don't want to, cut the interaction. The meeting's only going to be 45 minutes. We'll have a break. Whatever these things are, they're not stated. It's only stated that come to the meeting at 10 o'clock. And people are coming with sandwiches. People are coming late. People are saying, oh, what did I miss in the first 10 minutes? People are on their phones. And nobody knows there's anything wrong with this because nobody said anything.
Right. No, I love that clarification you just made between rules and norms. Rules are sort of what I impose on you. Norms are how we behave together. And
Yes.
I think that's a really great way of putting it and terrific. So for me, that was extraordinarily helpful. There's really two other areas I'd love to explore a little bit further with you because we're running a bit out of time.
Sure.
Political discussions. When should and shouldn't they happen in the workforce?
That, to me, is totally dependent on, first of all, with whom are you discussing it? That's incredibly important. Are you talking in an open forum over lunch and it's a variety of people throughout the organization, and or is it an open place where others can hear? Do you trust the people you're talking with, and really everybody? Because if others can hear it, then you need to be able to trust everyone. And the point here is, if I'm strolling by and I hear you and some other people having a political discussion, and I catch a few words, catch a few phrases, and I don't like you, I could take that and run with it a variety of places. So it's very important to be careful, especially when something in these times, political discussions are very sensitive. They're sensitive all the time, but I think now even more than ever. So where might your words be taken and twisted or taken out of context and reported somewhere that you don't really want them reported? I also think, above all else, and I say this about a variety of things I'm asked about, when can you do this, that, and the other thing in the workplace, don't let it interfere with the work. Don't be caught, having a heated discussion about a political issue when you're supposed to be finishing a report I asked you to do. I come by and you're, in this thing and your report's late, then it's no good. You're there to do a job. That's the first priority. That's what you're getting paid for. That's the deal. Lunch hour, your break, whatever, okay, but get the work done. So those two things, I think I've recently been asked about banning certain things and should things be banned, and I don't think that's smart, because that now goes to rules, and there should be no banning. If I'm a human being and I want to chat with a close friend of mine about something that I'm passionate about, and it's my lunch break, and we're having coffee in the cafeteria, I should be allowed to do that. I mean, I'm an adult. We're not in third grade here, so I think it's just smart to be cautious with.
No, I think that's really really helpful in terms of how people think about it, and obviously the overhearing and things getting taken out of context is a really important thing to be sensitive to.
Yes.
The second area is it's very timely because it's been so much in the news, is harassment in the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that with so many allegations of misconduct by people in power, and interestingly enough, Time, the Silence Breakers, as the Person of the Year, that we're moving into an area of respect for the individual? And how does this need to be kept in check so that it is something that stays, the issue of harassment in the workforce stays in the past?
Great question. And again, it's such a huge area now. I think the absolute key to going forward in an atmosphere where, yes, it is absolutely about respect. I also think it's about clear and specific boundaries. And again, I think this is an area where people are not verbalizing and specifying, whether that has to come from the organization or people as these things occur. So my point here is sexual harassment or harassment of any kind. Again, we're back to a definition. How are you defining that? Because lots of us have relationships with workers, co-workers, and, people we've worked with for a long time. So there are jokes and there are physical things. Maybe, you touch me on the shoulder, or you give me a quick hug or whatever. And that's our norm. That's how we behave together. That's what's understood. So that's fine. Now, that's not fine for everyone. And that's not fine as a norm for the company. But I think these things have to be defined. And I think that's also a personal thing. So I remember when I was waitressing, and there was a customer, a male customer, who had come in, and he spent a lot of money in the restaurant and then the hotel, and he was tipping people outrageously. And he was often putting his arm around women, and they were okay with that, some of them, because he tipped them. And sometimes there's a gray line there. You want the tip. Is it really such a big deal that he's touching you? Well, for me, it was. So I would back away from him. He would start to come near me. I backed away. I made it clear that, I'm going to get you your food or whatever it is, but you're not touching me. Now, I didn't get tipped as much as everybody else because he didn't like that so much. But I set the boundary. I had to, and I did it. Others didn't, and that's up to them. But we, as people, need to know what our boundaries are for everybody, and then we need to figure out how to set those, whether it's a physical, in my case, just a physical moving away, or staying, listen, that's not going to work for me.
No, I think that's really important, because I think we allow people power.
Yes.
If we allow the behavior to happen and we don't determine what the boundary is for us personally.
Laura, tell us your website and how people can reach you.
Great. Would love to, Don. Two ways. You can go to bloodymarymess.com, which has a great video and tells about my leadership work with some free tips. And my website is fromtheinsideoutproject.com. You can find out more about me and my services and where I came from in my work, and I'd love to have you contact me. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Laura, for being with us.
Want to know more about health savings accounts for your company or yourself? Go to 2hsa.com and get a free employer's primer. Health savings accounts are a cost-effective way of offering health care benefits to your employees and yourself. HSAs build retirement funds for your employees, improve morale, and reduce your health care benefit cost. For a free employer guide to HSAs, go to 2hsa.com. That's 2hsa.com.
Dan Perkins here from Recalculating.biz with your featured book. I want to tell you about a recent interview I had with Bob Bethel, a turnaround specialist with lots of success in small business. Bob's new book is Strengthen Your Business, Fail-Proof Strategies for Small Business. He tells us of his life successes and failures that have made him and his clients so successful. Over the years, Bob has brought 77 companies back from the brink and changed them into thriving, profitable businesses. His energy is amazing, and at 74, he proves that you can still have a great deal to give others if you just try. His suggestions are easy to understand and very helpful. One insight struck me was that most companies do not have a plan. The old Chinese proverb says, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will take you there, is true today. Bob Bethel's book, Strengthen Your Business, can be found at Amazon.com or can be ordered at your local bookstore. This has been Dan Perkins with your Recalculating.biz featured book.
Our next guest is Margot MiCallef of GK Skinny Pasta. She's here to talk about how she has created, with her late sister, a truly extraordinary company. And here to talk with her is our co-host, Ann Dow, a veteran food industry executive and past president of the Specialty Food Association. Ann, take it away.
Thanks, Don. You already had an accomplished background as founder and president of Oliver Capital Partners, which I think you started in 2003, the same year you and your sister Gabrielle co-founded a Better For You food company. Can you tell us a little bit about what Oliver Capital Partners does?
Sure. So just to go back one more step, I trained as a lawyer and I worked as a law firm in a major law firm for a number of years. And then I went into a telecommunications company as a senior executive, and I ran the legal department. I created and ran the legal department. And what I realized when I was there was that the lawyers did all the work and the investment bankers got all the glory. And so after about 10 years of doing that work, I decided to venture out on my own, and I started Oliver Capital Partners. And I had the legal background, but I approached it from the perspective of more of an investment banker, from the perspective of structuring and putting deals together and bringing financing, to bear on the transaction. And so through Oliver Capital, I've invested in a number of different businesses, including broadcasting, publishing, real estate, food service, and that's how we got into the food manufacturing business with Gabriella's Kitchen, which is the parent company of Skinny Pasta.
So I believe if I've got it right, Skinny Pasta came into being in 2009, and I'm absolutely certain you've been asked this question numerous times, but could you let our audience know about the inspiration for the product line and how it actually pays homage to your family's history?
Absolutely. It started out, and I always say this, it started out really simply. It was really about the pasta. And what happened is that my sister and I, my family's Italian, but my sister and I have always been very healthy eaters. And so we were experimenting with different kinds or styles of eating. And, we were young, younger than we are now. And so vanity played a big part in our food choices in terms of, wanting to eat healthy, but also wanting to make sure that we were able to, maintain our physique. And also energy, because we were both athletic. And my sister, in fact, was a marathon runner. So wanting to make sure that we ate, so that we could maintain a nice physique, ate to maintain health and energy, and ate to maintain our athletic performance. So that led us to eating low carb, and we felt that that was the most effective way to maintain and to realize all of those goals. Sadly, eating low carb meant not eating pasta. So for the first couple of years that we were eating in this way, we just gave up pasta. And it was challenging. It was challenging because for Italians, pasta is cultural. It's not a food product. It's really a way of life. And it's integrated in everything we do. So we would go home for family dinners, and of course my mom would make a big plate of pasta, and we would shun this. And so it became a crisis in our family, and it also became a crisis in our personal life in the sense that, after 2 years of not eating pasta, we decided, this can't go on forever. We really have to find an alternative. So I made the decision to try everything that was on the market, saying to myself, we are not the only people in the world who have cut down or cut out pasta. So we looked for an alternative, and we found nothing that was suitable. So being Italian, we had really high standards of what we were going to eat as an alternative pasta. It had to have the mouthfeel. It had to have the texture. It had to be able to bind properly with sauce. It had to have the neutral flavor so that it could take on the flavor of the sauce. So it had to have all of these attributes that basically, were like traditional pasta, but none of the unhealthy components. We didn't want it to spike blood sugar. We wanted it to contribute to health and well-being, so it had to have good nutrients in it. And we wanted it to contribute to athleticism, so it had to have protein. There was nothing on the market like that. So, being an entrepreneur, I just said to my sister, we have to do this ourselves. So we did. We hired a chef, and after several months, he came back to us with a recipe that he could make in small batches, and we would run it through our home, pasta maker, the hand crank, and it was really good. And so we started eating it and trying it, and we tried it with other people, and he identified that that his clients wanted it, and our family wanted it, and our friends wanted it. And so we came to realize that there was, in fact, a market for a delicious, nutritious product like ours, a pasta like ours. So we took his recipe, we met with food scientists, and without altering the fact that we wanted no chemicals and preservatives and or any of those negative things in the pasta, they helped us develop a commercial recipe, which we then took to market, and we've never looked back.
That's just fabulous, and thank you so much for weaving your family history into that. Your product range includes kids' meals, gluten-free, high protein, and a superfood that's called TEFF, T-E-F-F. Can you tell us a bit about that particular ingredient and why it is important?
So our goal is always to use interesting and healthy ingredients. So we're a little bit ahead of the curve with TEFF. We discovered it about 3 years ago and put it brought it to market about a year and a half or so ago. TEFF is a grass that's made in Ethiopia, or that's grown in Ethiopia, and it's naturally high in protein, it's naturally gluten-free, and it's naturally full of micronutrients like magnesium, manganese, copper, zinc, iron, just tremendous product. And it is the foundation of the Ethiopian diet. If you've ever eaten in an Ethiopian restaurant, the injera bread that they use, to sop up all of the foods that they eat is made from TEFF. So we discovered it and we experimented with it, and we found a producer in the United States, so we have an ample supply of it, and we make extruded pastas from that. So we make macaroni, we make a fusilli, and we make a penne from it. And that's the foundation for our extruded pastas. It's also, we make kids' meals out of it, and we also make prepared meals using that noodle.
That's really, really fantastic. And yes, I'm familiar with Ethiopian food, and I hadn't come across actually the concept of TEFF, so I think it's a great learning experience for me as well.
Yeah, and the neat thing is, I think we're the only product on the market that actually uses TEFF in pasta. And the TEFF that you can find now is usually just the milled grain or grass that you could add to your own ingredients, to your own, muffins and things like that. There's not a lot of products that are offering TEFF as a ready-to-eat product.
Yeah, because there's a lot of foods now using ancient grains.
Yes.
This is something entirely new, and I think that's really terrific. You lost your sister to cancer, which had to have been incredibly difficult for you. How did you find the strength to continue to develop the product line and expand distribution? Do you mind talking about that?
Not at all. It really is the foundation of our business. And it started early, actually, because while I mentioned at the beginning, that there was a little bit of vanity and the desire to perform well and look good, when we developed the company, ironically, as we were launching the business was when my sister got diagnosed with cancer. So she was already relatively healthy in that she was a marathoner and she was eating relatively well. But we learned so much about food. And so she started cutting out even more food out of her diet. And there was not at that time a lot of healthy food alternatives. So as she cut out food products and as her food became more and more bland, fewer and fewer people would actually dine with her because nobody wanted to eat the food that she was eating. And so the realization that we had whilst she was still alive was that good health is more than just physical well-being. There's an emotional element to it, there's a social element to it, and there's a spiritual and mental element to it. And when you say that, people go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But when you actually think about good health, we only tend to focus on physical, and certainly that's what the medical profession does. Now, eating is a really important element of well-being, and it's part of the social, spiritual, and emotional element of well-being, physical as well, of course. And if you think about the idea of not being able to share a meal, I mean, if you think about when you celebrate, you go out to eat, when you taste something that's good, the first thing you want to do is reach out over to somebody and say, oh my God, this is amazing, you've got to taste it, you want to share. So she was becoming quite marginalized, and she was really suffering emotionally and spiritually and socially from that. And so that changed the nature of our business, and it became less about the vanity and about the performance and more about the inclusion. We wanted to make food that everybody could eat together, regardless of dietary preference or requirements. So our food is delicious and nutritious. So it starts with delicious, but of course the important element and differentiator is nutritious. So when she passed,
please go ahead.
Sorry, when she passed away, I was devastated. And ironically, a week before she passed away, we hired somebody to work with her because things were happening very quickly, and she was, slowing down energy-wise. And I'm the eternal optimist, and she was so, strong and such an optimist that, her passing took me by surprise. And some people might say, we saw her getting weaker, but her emotionally and mentally and spiritually, she wasn't weakening at all. She was still, driving and really wanting to build this business. So we hired somebody about a week before she passed away to help her with the business. She was able to meet with him and download all of the information about kind of where things were going because she was really running the day-to-day operation at that time. And then she passed away quite suddenly. But for the fact that we had hired this guy, I probably would have just walked away from everything because I was so devastated. This was my business partner and my best friend, not to mention my sister. So when she passed,
Okay, I've lost connection.
This man. But he basically just babysat for a couple of years until I found the strength to step back in. And I was looking for a way to honor my sister, and I realized that the best way to honor her was to build the business that we had started together and that she was so passionate about.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. It's just incredibly heartfelt and wonderful. I think sometimes people might misunderstand what skinny pasta is. To your point, it's more about, I guess, holistic, health, how we feel, our socialization, how our food is not just about energy, but it's about, sharing and all of that. What are you doing to help consumers understand the better for you healthy lifestyle that you are promoting through your product line?
So that's actually a really brilliant question on your part and incredible foresight because we are, in fact, moving to a rebrand. And what happened is when we started the business, skinny was kind of a fun term. You had the skinny vodka and you had, skinny jeans and skinny pop and, all of these kind of, fun brands around skinny this and skinny that. And so we kind of jumped on that bandwagon because we also had that element to the food. It's lower in calories and lower in carb than regular pasta. So we kind of jumped on that, and we realized as the company's been developing, and as you know, culture has kind of evolved, that the word skinny has taken on a whole new meaning. And so we're moving away from the word skinny. We actually are rebranding under the brand name Noodi, Noodi, which is a bit of a play on the word foodie and also a play on the word noodles. It also kind of evokes the element of transparency, which is what we're all about as well. And we also can have lots of fun with it too, which is we're a fun brand, right? So we can have nudie colonies and, you know, with people that have different interests around food and around athleticism and performance and all of that. So we are moving away from the skinny brand concept because we don't think it tells the full story about what we're about.
I think that's hysterical. I love it. I absolutely love it. I think that's a great idea. You have on your website, you have some amazing skinny pasta ambassadors. I saw bodybuilders, personal trainers, Olympic athletes, healthy lifestyle bloggers, boxers, powerlifter coaches. How did you find them? Or maybe the question is, how did they find you?
You know, it's word of mouth. I mean, they found us for the most part. You know, athletes tend to be, you know, very focused on what they eat and how they feel their body and how they look and how they perform. But they are actually quite good about sharing information, and especially, you know, in the Olympic community, because they see each other and, you know, they're representing their country and they work together. So they spread the word, and there is nothing like us on the market. So when you're looking for a way to fuel quickly, fuel easily, fuel healthy, and, you know, enhance performance and well-being, you know, our product is probably one of the best ways to do that because it cooks in 2 minutes. And you can, you know, keep it in your freezer for 2 years. Nobody ever does, of course. You eat it far more sooner than that. Keep it in your fridge for 6 to 8 weeks. And it's easy to cook. It tastes great, and it gives you all of that energy and all of those nutrients in a low-carb, low-calorie platform. So it's you know, athletes love it because of that.
Fantastic. You've been selling across Canada, and I think you entered the U.S. market in 2015, where you're continuing to expand. Thank you. Please talk about the challenges you are facing with American distributors and retailers. What are some of the things that you're facing?
So the first thing, when we decided to launch into the U.S. market, we launched with a food truck in the Los Angeles, sort of Southern California market. And because nobody knew us. And that's the hardest thing, is to break through the noise and build awareness for your brand so that people start to ask for it and retailers start to want to carry it. So we were lucky that we had, you know, some traction in Canada. So, you know, if you looked us up, you would learn quite a bit of information about us. So we weren't starting from ground zero. But nobody in the U.S. knew us. So we wrapped a food truck, and we just drove around for about a year giving away our product. And the neat thing was that we got discovered by, you know, PR picked us up, media picked us up, consumers loved us, and so started clamoring for us to get into grocery, and they would ask their grocery store about us, so that attracted retailers to us. The fun thing is that the Academy, the folks at the Academy Awards, who give out the goodie bags, to nominees and to other high-profile people, they discovered us, and they invited us to put our product into the swag bag at one of the gift boutiques. So we did that, and that gave us even more publicity. So, you know, that kind of got word of mouth, and becoming known is a really important first step to getting on shelf. So that helped us gain a relationship with some smaller retailers, which then helped us gain a relationship with some smaller distributors and brokers. And then working with those smaller distributors and brokers, we started approaching the bigger brands and the bigger banner stores. And it's sort of one begets the next, right? So once you get into some of these stores, then others start to notice you. And then, once you get in with a bigger banner store, then the bigger distributors start to get interested in you. And oftentimes, when we got into Albertsons, they were the ones who told their distributor, we want you to carry this product. Well, then that distributor opens doors to other large banner stores. So it's kind of, it's like rolling a big rock up a hill. And then when you get to the top of the hill, you get to go, wee, and let it go down. And kind of that's where we're at. We're still, doing lots of climbing. But they're also, we're getting approached, like Sprouts, we're in Sprouts now, and they contacted us. We, just were so excited when that happened because they don't often do that. And they're a fantastic store to be in, very much aligned with us, and really got behind us, When we presented to Publix, they were so excited because there was nothing like us on the market. They put us in 800 plus stores immediately. So, it's you get brand awareness by doing some crazy things to get consumers to start talking about you. And then it's just, word of mouth, grassroots, and then one begets the next. And so that's, kind of how it's happening. One of the challenges is when we get into these stores is merchandising, making sure that we get good product placement and making sure that we're visible. And, we always ask our consumers, if you like us and you support us, if you don't like where we are in the freezer because it's too hard to find or we're too, on the bottom shelf or you can't see us or you want more, SKUs, tell your manager, because they really listen to consumers.
Yeah. No, it sounds so much like what you're doing is almost growing organically, and because it's something that's really unique. You have a unique selling proposition. You're unique in the category, and you're relevant. What you're doing is
exactly.
Resonating with the consumers. So I think that's extraordinarily fabulous. So when you think about where you are geographically, where can consumers buy your products today, and what locations are really key targets for you for further expansion?
Well, always California and New York are really important markets because they tend to be the trendsetters. So we're building quickly in those markets because media tends to look at what's going on in those markets, and when they find something they like, they'll broadcast it, and media is a really important way for us to get our message across the country. But having said that, we're really spread out. We're filling in everything in between New York and California. And we're, in quite a number of locations in the east, along the East Coast. We're in some Midwest centers. So, some of the banner stores we're in are, as I mentioned, Sprouts and Publix and Albertsons and Safeway and Ingles and Acme. We should be going on shelf with Meijer very soon. We are in dialogue with Costco and Walmart. We're in dialogue with Whole Foods. We are in Whole Foods in Canada, but not yet in the U.S. We're in Bristol Farms, some of the smaller regional brands. And then in Canada, we're in all of the major banner stores, Loblaws, Sobeys, Safeway, Metro, Longo's, and then some of the regional higher-end stores like Urban Fare, Planet Organic in the Alberta market. The best way for consumers, the best way to find us, because we are a little bit sporadic, is to go online at gkskinnypasta.com and or Gabriella's-kitchen.com, and we have a store locator, so you can just plug in your zip code or your postal code in Canada, and we'll tell you the stores that are nearest you and what products are carried in those stores.
Awesome. No, that's really fantastic. Have you thought about doing any trade shows to introduce in a broader way to more potential customers?
Yeah, we've done a lot of trade shows. Of course, we're in Anaheim at Expo West. We've been doing that for 2 years, and I mean it's exhausting because we are so unique. People really flock to us. Retailers really flock to us, and we've made a lot of contacts through Expo West. We were at Expo East twice. In fact, we were featured on one of their banners because we were such a unique product. And so, there was a picture of me holding our Skinny Pasta box, wearing a muscle shirt and flexing my muscles out at Expo East. Yeah. And then we've done the Fancy Food Show. We do a lot of distributor trade shows. And then we do other shows, that might be regional and where we can showcase our products. We've done a couple of consumer shows.
Hello?
Hi.
Yeah, all of a sudden I lost you there.
Yeah, no worries.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay.
Yes, I can. Yeah.
All of a sudden it went blank on me, and I'm not quite sure what happened. I think that's terrific because you're getting exposure. What I wanted, because typically funding to expand, because capacity is also always something you have to plan for. Are you self-funding your expansion? Do you have other investors in your expansion? You don't have to tell me any details. I'm just curious how you're planning your expansion, because obviously the more locations you have, the more capacity you're going to need.
Yeah, and that's a great question as well. So I put a lot of money in. I was fortunate that I, had money through other investments and other deals, and I've done this before. So I had some money that I could invest, and I've invested quite a bit of my own money, $5 million to be exact. And I also raised capital from outside investors, and we've raised something in the neighborhood of about $6 to $8 million. Because we're in the middle of a funding round right now, and that is the hardest thing because you get it. You need to spend money before you actually bring any money in. Then you start to get orders, and you need to build inventory, and you need to hire staff, and you need to get manufacturing facilities and capabilities. And then as the snowball starts to accelerate, you get more orders, and you need more inventory and more people, but you're still just getting the revenue in the door. So it's a real chicken and egg thing. And we've been really fortunate that we have had a lot of support from funders, from individual high net worth investors who have worked with us in the past and who have brought other investors to the table. Right now, we are adding a second line to our manufacturing facility so that we can keep up with the demand. We have a backlog of about $150,000 worth of orders. We're about behind around 3 weeks or so, and our retailers have been very patient and understanding with us. But we would like to have zero backlog, and we would love to have it to build up inventory so that we can ship as soon as we get an order in. But we've just been so busy and hit so hard with so many orders that it's hard to do that. So we keep raising capital in order to fund that growth, which is happening very quickly.
I really would like to end with, if you don't mind, if your sister were here today, what would you say to her about the company you and she co-founded?
I think that we would both be in disbelief. When we first started the business, she would make the pasta in the back of a small retail storefront. She would sell it out the front, and then she'd close the shop at 3 p.m., and she'd go out and flog our pasta to individual retailers. And we have come so far. We have such a huge following. We have people who are very well known, who respect us and support us and love our product. And we have, a manufacturing team that is working dedicated making our products. I sometimes walk into our manufacturing facility and I see us going full speed ahead, and it brings tears to my eyes because my sister would just be laughing. She would be so excited because you start something and you believe it's going to succeed, but when you see people that you don't even know, it's not even family and friends, loving our product, going into retailers and buying it and going back and buying it again and telling their friends about it, there's nothing more exciting than that.
Fantastic. Sorry, Don, I'm going to let you close.
No, Ann, that was a great question. I'm sorry to break in like that. But, Margot, can you tell us your websites again and where people can reach you?
Absolutely. So we're on Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest. So on Twitter, we're at Skinny Pasta. On Instagram, we're at GK Skinny Pasta. And on Pinterest, we're at GK Skinny Pasta. And that's also our website, GK, which stands for Gabriella's Kitchen, gkskinnypasta.com. And because of our rebrand, we are going to also start populating our website, Gabriella's-kitchen.com.
I've been listening, and it's just been a fascinating time. And you get to say the last word.
No, I just want to say thank you so much, Margot. I think I could have talked with you for at least another half an hour. And when do you think nudies are going to show up?
Well, we're launching in January in the U.S. market. So, the retailers will probably start to get to sell out of their current product, and then you'll start to see our new brand and our new products on shelf, hopefully, before the end of Q1.
Wonderful. Terrific.
You've been listening to Food and Wine Insider with Ann Daw and Don Mazzella. Food and Wine Insider.